Hi again, everyone. Glad you're with us. We are with Chairman Mike Boyce for our weekly chat. The temperature's getting warmer, the pollen's out, and the tax digest is up.
Yes,
Those three
yes,
things
yes.
happen at the same time.
Yeah, along with the grass in my yard.
Yeah, it's time to start mowing. The tax digest went up by, our chief appraiser estimated 7.5%. To the
Right.
people out there, what does that mean?
Well, that means the appraised value on property that he assesses in the county has gone up in value by 7.5%. But again, I caution people that when you look at our tax bill, that is not there's not a proportional increase in the tax revenue that we get from general property. And that again goes back to the famous two programs that were implemented, almost 20 years ago, which is the Florida exemption, homestead exemption, where you get $10,000 taken off your assessed value of your house when you buy the house, and you apply for the appropriate exemption, and then the assessed value of your house is frozen at at the assessed value when you bought the house. So let's say you bought a house for $100,000. The assessed value of your house is 40% of that. So the assessed value for tax purposes would be $40,000. And then if you apply for the homestead exemption, you get $10,000 taken off that. So that means your assessed value is assessed at $30,000. It's a great county to live in. I mean, we really try to take the burden off the county, the residents who buy property here. But again, I wanted to let people know that the tax bill is broken down into four parts. It's broken down to the general fund part of it, which is the assessed value of your house, frozen at the Florida exemption part. The parks bond, which is you pay the full assessed value of your house, so your assessed value of your house will go up every year, and the exemptions don't apply to that, nor do they apply to the fire fund, nor do they apply to the school tax. So your tax bill will go up every year because three of the four parts of the tax bill, you pay taxes against the new assessed value of your house, not against the exempt value. In our case here, we fight every year to pay for our county services out of the general fund part of it, which is against the exempt part of your taxes.
And when you cut that pie down, the school district, on average, between 70 and 75% of what you pay in property taxes.
Well, yes. Let's just give you the numbers. In 2017, we passed the tax rates at 6.76 mils for general fund purposes. And remember, that's assessed against your floating exemption part of your house. But the other part, you paid 0.13 mil for the parks bond, and we're getting some really nice properties. So that both opens up green space, but also slows development. The fire fund, which is you get your money back on that, because by maintaining our rating of 1, then your property, your home insurance stays low. So you're going to recoup that amount because we keep that highest rating. And then, of course, the school tax, which is 18.9. And I just ask people, as we get into the tax discussions here and the budget discussions, take a look at your tax bill to make sure that those parts of the tax bill you're concerned about, you're informed about which ones you're really concerned about.
Right. And you and I are in this similar situation because of this floating homestead exemption.
Right.
Our houses have been assessed higher,
Right.
Yet I think we're both paying less to the county general fund.
For the general fund, I pay $7 less now than I did 15 years ago. But now I have the advantage, I'm over 62. I know I don't look it, but I'm over 62. So I'm exempt from the school tax. So that's 18.9 mils that I no longer have to pay. But I still pay for the fire fund and for the parks bond. So of course, for the general fund purposes, my taxes will be lower than they were 15 years ago. But for the fire fund and the parks bond, they'll probably be a little bit higher because I'm paying against the full assessed value of the house.
And just one more comment, because this is a common theme when you hear people say our tax digest is up 7.5%,
Sure, right.
That should fill the hole.
You'd think.
But the finance folks tell me they budget in a tax digest increase into their plans in the first place. So they were planning already on a 5.5% tax
That's correct.
digest
So
increase.
the beauty of that is because we got a little bit more, there may be a chance, we haven't had a chance to do all the math yet, but there may be a chance that $30 million hole, all right, may get smaller because we may get a small increment in property revenue for the general fund. But again, it's too early to tell that. First of all, the actual assessed values haven't been mailed out yet. We had to make sure that that this was just an estimate, although I'm very confident in Steve's numbers. But again, we have to wait until next month when the property taxes are mailed out to get a pretty good idea of what impact this increase in tax digest will have on the general fund part of our budget.
Right, and that's going to be a summer's worth of discussion.
Well, that's a nice segue into the fact that we have finally locked down the schedules for the town halls, and I'm going to let you show that on the screen here. But as I promised, I'm doing 5 town halls in June, and that's in addition to the 3 public hearings that are required for both the millage rate and then 3 public hearings for the budget. So in a total, for budget-related activities, there'll be 11 opportunities for the citizens to come talk to us in person. And of course, we actively encourage them to use emails, texting, Twitter, Facebook to tell us how they feel about the proposed budget charts that I'm going to be showing them in June.
Right, and as the months go on, we'll be putting out an education campaign with some information so they'll be well informed by the time those town halls.
Absolutely right. We started out really early last year in the fall by telling people we had a $30 million hole. All right. We also told them some of the ideas we had about how to fill that hole, and some of them were controversial, but there's no surprises this time. And I'm still getting input from the citizens and emails how they feel about certain things, particularly libraries. But as I've assured everybody here, we have not made any decisions by the board yet. I'm still getting the briefings from all the departments via their liaison commissioners. We will not be done with all those briefings until May. And then in early June, the board and I will sit down and we'll come up with a draft budget for what we want, what we think the 2019 millage rate should look like. So we got a couple months here yet for that to be coming out, and then of course in June we'll really be hearing from the citizens to have a budget to be voted on at the end of July.
Well, as if that's not enough to worry about in the upcoming months, I was reading the transit legislation that passed down under the Gold Dome last week. It's long and complicated. And it shows me that the work on this issue really is just starting. Yeah,
well, you must have insomnia if you read all 75 pages. I'm still working my way through it. As I told people, this is a compromise. There was a lot of interaction between the board members and the delegation, because the delegation in this case was the ones responsible for carrying this bill forward. We weren't spectators, but this wasn't our bill. This was the legislature's bill. But we worked very hard to get language in there to first show the metro area that Cobb really wanted to be part of a regional partnership, but B, we had some unique circumstances here, and I thought it was very important that we emphasize that we have a transit system in Cobb County that reflects the kind of system we need to get people to work and to address the mobility issues. So I think that the language came out right now. You're going to see on the screen here what the legislature came up with. The bottom line is that we're going to have a large joint committee made up of both the board and the delegation. That's 26 members. I'll be the one to call the first meeting to order, but then after that we'll elect a chairman for this committee, and then the committee will be broken down into 2 subcommittees, basically one subcommittee of the board members and one subcommittee member of the delegation members, and they'll come up with a transitory map that they want to take forward to the public. And I just want to emphasize again and again, there will be no 1 cent tax or any increment of up to 1 cent without a referendum. I don't care how small the amount is. The people will get the vote on this. And we're going to be doing again like we're doing with the budget. There will be an information campaign to get out there and tell people this is what we're thinking about doing. And we're looking for, right now the legislation says we have to have this product done by December of 2019. But I don't see any reason right now why we can't put this referendum on the ballot in November of 2019. We need to get this behind us because in 2020, we have to start addressing the SPLOST tax for the continuation of the current SPLOST one.
And built into the legislation too, along this long route, will be soliciting comments from the public.
Very much so. I think that what we've done now is that we've opened this up. But I always have, at the end of my weekly email to my email list, I have the bottom line is it's your government, stay involved. And the citizens have a responsibility in this partnership to do their part too. And if you just sit on the sidelines expecting the government to do its part, and then the only time you get involved is when we do something that doesn't make you happy. It doesn't do us any good to have that kind of partnership. It's what means you're just expecting 5 members in the county staff to do all the work for you while you enjoy the fruits of our labor. And I have no problem. That's what we're elected to do. I appreciate that. But we can't do our job well unless you tell us what it is that your concerns are. And the time to tell us your concerns is not after we vote on something, when you finally wake up to the fact that it's had a negative impact on your life and you're not happy with it. So again, let's get the word out. We expect the citizens to stay involved in this process so that when we finally get our arms around these really difficult issues, and don't kid yourself, these are the kind of issues where you elected us to make the hard calls. But they're a little bit easier to make when we have lots of input, so we have a general idea of the body of support or non-support for an issue by the public. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing right now, and I really appreciate the effort that you're making, your team is making to get us more open to the public and to use the current social media platforms to hear from everybody.
And when I read through this legislation that as you mentioned, is rather tedious, it seems to me it gives Cobb, this county, a unique ability to really kind of shape this thing the way we want it to be.
It does, but it also gives us varied options. What is in the legislation is that we have a way to carve out a map. Okay, well, that's one thing. But we also have the ability to do a countywide referendum. So there's a lot of work to be done yet. The first thing is that I have to convene this committee, and we have to decide how we want to move ahead. But we don't really have a lot of time to do this because we need to have something put together, I think, by Christmas of this year, so that in January we come out of the chute, start telling people about what kind of project list and what we want to do with your tax dollars and how we want to collect the tax dollars. And those are some really hard calls that are going to involve a lot of work with the delegation, and whoever the committee chairman is has their hands full to make sure that, because the reality is I'm the only full-time person out of all these 26 people. Now, again and again, I keep telling people, your board members, that's not a part-time job. They're here at least 4 days a week, all day. And I do things after hours and on weekends. And I suspect that our delegation members are just as committed in their job. So we have to find a way to balance their outside interests, in case they have jobs, with leading this county forward in a direction to find some sort of way of connecting to this important regional partnership.
All right, a lot of work ahead on the budget and transit and everything else that goes on in Cobb County. You have an opportunity to send us any particular questions or avenues that you'd like us to discuss in this program at feedback@cobbcounty.org. And of course, all our social media channels will keep you updated on everything going on in the county.
Right.
So in the meantime, until next week, have a good one.